occasional blast of nostalgia when talking about movies that are based off of video games. I get transported to a time when an announcement of such a thing was a serious deal. In a much lesser sense, it's sort of along the lines of feeling as though the universe is acknowledging one of my interests, that I'm getting representation of my subculture in the film industry. Growing up as a kid who played a pretty substantial amount of video games, it was impossible to contain the excitement of such an announcement. Now, as an adult who still plays a pretty substantial amount of video games, the feeling has turned into a bittersweet embarrassment. Now we have Monster Hunter, directed by Paul W.S. Anderson and starring Mila Jovovich, Tony Jaa, and T.I. The film is scheduled to come to theaters later this year, and this week the official trailer just dropped. My adult self felt the absolute need to take a look and comment about this trailer, if at least to provide the memory of my excited childhood self some justice. As soon as the film was announced, we knew that it would have a rough road ahead of it. Video game movies in general are considered to be pretty awful, very justifiably so. People may argue over the reasons why they never seem to work, but most of it could easily boil down to that not being able to deliver the same sort of experience that the game themselves give you. Added to that already complicated baggage, we have Paul W.S. Anderson attached to direct this film. While not as infamous a name as Uwe Boll, he does have his fair share of video game films under his belt. Honestly, some of the better video game films. All that considered though, he is not a name that offers a lot of confidence in quality of product. And for me, there's a double degree of apprehension. This film is based on the popular video game series by the same name. Monster Hunter has had a huge following in Japan, and very recently, as in a couple of years ago recently, the latest version of the game was released here in the West. It almost immediately became a worldwide success story, becoming its developers, Capcom's, fastest, biggest selling product. I'm particularly invested in this film because much like legions of gamers around the world, I've played a stupid amount of this game. I've clocked many hundreds of hours in it, and I am very much viewing this film and trailer from an insider's perspective. So, about that trailer. Let's be honest here. I really don't think anybody was really expecting much different from this, right? Most people, I think, perhaps even the people involved in the production of this film, what were real expectations they had for this film? Did they expect it to be really good? Pessimism aside though, let's take a look at the trailer as it starts with a group of soldiers driving around the desert. They come across some strange ancient artifacts when all of a sudden a monstrous electrical storm comes by and swoops them away to some mysterious place. A mysterious place that, if not for some fancy editing in the actual trailer, basically looks exactly the same as the place that they just came from. And unfortunately, this is where I have to stop, because it's here that the most glaring problem this film has comes to light. The plot of this film, from all the information that we have up until this point, is that these soldiers have been Wizard of Oz'd to the Monster Hunter world, and they have to find their way back. It's a hackneyed go-to trope that really shows a disconnect between the writers and the original game's loyal community. The triteness of the premise aside, though, the question needs to be asked: is this what you're looking for from a Monster Hunter movie? The answer you'll likely get from anyone who's played the game is likely no. The John Cartering that we've shown in this trailer and what we are led to believe this film is about is completely disconnected from the experience the video game brings to you. The film's writers have used the old Alice in Wonderland switcheroo to in some way explain away the lore and history, the very luscious and expansive lore and history of the Monster Hunter world. It's a jarring dependency to tethering a fictional, very fantastic narrative to something familiar, something tangible, something that everybody can recognize and understand. Soldiers out in the desert shooting things. The worst bit about how the narrative of this film comes together is how unauthentic it comes off as. It is very apparent that this film's story is the product of boardroom meetings and not from the perspective of someone who likely has some sort of love and connection towards the source material. And that makes a difference. I spoke before about the experience that you get when playing this game, or any other game for that matter. A fan of the game has a direct connection to the narrative while he's playing it. Their actions have an actual direct influence on the story and how it unfolds. The victories and discoveries are something that the player experiences on a personal level. When you write a film like this with such a jarring disconnect from the source of inspiration, you're going to get a lot of people that just can't reconcile with the disingenuous narrative that's being forced in their face. It's hard to continue to speak on the rest of this trailer when so much of the film's reality is built on such a rocky foundation. We're gonna try though. Basically, the rest of the trailer just shows Mila Jovovich and the gang shooting up monsters with guns and bazookas, a plane that comes by and is attacked by one of the monsters. There are two of the game's recognizable monsters being showcased in this trailer, and we see a lot of them just flying around or roaming around and destroying a lot of military equipment and being shot at by military weapons and bazookas. Pushing on, there is some silver lining to this nebulous blob of noxious gas. At the very least, what we can see from the trailer is that there is some care shown when it comes to the film's visuals. The monsters look as they should and seemingly act that way as well, and that raises an eyebrow of curiosity. If there were any reason for me to want to see this film, it would be to see how they translated the monsters and their world onto the screen. Now lately there's been a trend for Hollywood movies to release really bad trailers for their films here in the US, while the international trailers are way better. They're usually cut a lot more coherently with a lot more attention to constructing an intelligible story. In addition, there is a lot less focus on action set pieces, especially for a film like this, which is predominantly being sold as an action movie. If you go and seek out the international trailer for Monster Hunter, you'll be surprised as you'll see a lot more Tony Jaa, you'll see a lot less machine guns and bazooka-ing of monsters. You'll even be introduced to another character who is completely omitted from the US trailer. All this plus the trailer actually does make the film look way more interesting by providing you a glimpse of the actual Monster Hunter world, which is another fantastic aspect of the video game. I'm not sure if this trailer will serve to grasp the attention of the game's fan base. Perhaps that's not even the intention. Maybe the plan all along has been to cater to the wider appeal and just try to attract moviegoers into theaters. Potentially COVID-ridden theaters, with the promise of this vapid 90s style action movie based on a product that only a bunch of nerds are familiar with. A bunch of nerds, by the way, whose industry is worth twice as much as the film industry. So, should you be one of those nerds, make your decision with your wallets. Whether you approve of this vision of your product, or perhaps next time a film like this comes around, it will be more representative of those that have supported this franchise. Thanks a lot for coming to my trailer talk. My name is Michael J Migliore. If you've liked the video, if you like what I've said, or if you've hated it, please like, share, and subscribe the video. And please remember, this November, go out and vote. It's the only way that any kind of change can happen.